Hi everyone, today we'll be talking about how to name acids. There are three main types of acids and they have a different naming rule for each. So first thing you got to recognize is that hydrogen is the way to indicate that there's an acid. So the hydrogen ion will be in front, and then the anion could be a singular element like chlorine or bromine, or a polyatomic, such as sulfite or chlorate. So depending on what that is, that's going to determine how you name the acid. With binary acids, you're going to use the prefix hydro, and you're going to follow it with the suffix "ic", followed by the word acid. Now, a binary acid is an acid that contains two elements, hydrogen and another element. So if you only see two atoms of that substance, then you would have to use the prefix hydro. Now with the polyatomics, you're not going to use the prefix hydro. You only use that if there are two elements. So for example, here we have chloride. All right, when chloride reacts with a hydrogen plus 1, it's going to make HCl. So since that's a binary acid, we would call that hydrochloric acid. So we drop the "ide" and we put "ic" acid. If you have sulfur -2, sulfur is a -2 charge. When it reacts with hydrogen, it's going to make H2S. So the sulfide, we're going to drop the sulfide, we're going to put the prefix hydro, and then the suffix "ic" acid. So that would be hydrosulfuric acid. If you have an acid forming with a polyatomic ion, and that ion ends with ite, I-T-E, you're going to take the acid name with the main stem of the name, and you're going to drop the I-T-E, and instead you're going to put O-U-S at the end. So that'll be the suffix. And you're going to follow it with the word acid. So for example, sulfite is SO3-2. When it reacts with hydrogen, it's going to be H2SO3. So instead of sulfite, we're going to call it sulfurous acid. So it's sulfurous acid. Okay, with nitrite, NO2-1, when it reacts with hydrogen, it'll be HNO2. So we're going to drop the ite, I-T-E, and we're going to put ose. So it'd be called nitrous acid. When the polyatomic ion ends with the letters A-T-E, 8, you're going to drop the 8, and you're going to put ic, I-C, acid. So there's actually a mnemonic for this, and it says, "I ate icky apples, despite it being poisonous." So I'm going to write that down. So you can see here, I ate, we drop the 8 and we put ic. So I ate an icky apple. And then with the polyatomics that ends with ite, I-T-E, we drop the ite and we put ose. And then we just follow it with the word acid. So with sulfate is SO4-2. When it reacts with hydrogen, it becomes H2SO4. And we would drop the 8 and we would put sulfuric acid. Now, based on the rule I just told you, you would think it'd be called sulfic acid, but people just didn't like the sound of that, so they just said sulfuric acid. But normally, if you just take the root stem, you can add the ic at the end, as we see here with nitrate. So nitrate is NO3-1, and it becomes an acid with HNO3 because hydrogen will react with it, so it becomes HNO3. So we drop the 8 and we put nitric acid. So really there's three rules. If it's a binary acid, meaning you have two elements only. We would say hydrobromic acid, so we use the hydro prefix only with binary acids. If it comes from a polyatomic that ends with ITE, we drop the ITE, we put ose acid. And if the polyatomic ends with ATE, we drop the 8 and we put ic acid. So I'm going to do some examples with you. Okay, so let's do the examples. So the anion here is iodine. So when it reacts with hydrogen, we have hydrogen is a +1, iodine is -1. So these are going to cancel, and our acid formula is HI. So this is a binary acid because it has two elements. So we would use the prefix hydro, and then we put the root for iodine, so it'd be iodic acid. So you might have to look up the stems every now and then, but you just do your best. Hydroiodic, we add the ic at the end, acid. This next one comes from phosphate, the PO4. So the anion is phosphate, PO4 -3. And then when we had the hydrogen, that was the +1. So that's how we got this formula. So since it comes from phosphate, okay, we're going to drop the 8 and we're going to put ic acid. Now the stem for phosphorus is going to be phosphoric acid. This next one is called acetate. It's a polyatomic. When it reacts with hydrogen, hydrogen's a +1, acetate is a -1. So they will cancel out. And your formula will be HC2H3O2. And that is what we would call acetic, because we drop the 8 and then we put the word acid. This one, NO3, comes from nitrate. So nitrate is NO3 -1. It's H in front because hydrogen's a +1 and then nitrate's a -1. So our formula is HNO3. Since this came from nitrate, we drop the 8 and we put ic. So that'd be nitric acid. The next one is sulfate. And when sulfate reacts with hydrogen, you're going to get H2SO4. Now, we don't really like saying sulfic acid, so we just ended up saying sulfuric acid. That's also the case with phosphorus. Like, we didn't like phosphic acid, so we call it phosphoric acid. So these are the two kind of weird ones that you just have to know. The other ones, you just take the stem, the root. The last one is chloric acid, and this one comes from chlorate because it's an ic acid. So chlorate is ClO3 -1. When it reacts with hydrogen, it'll be HClO3. All right, so go ahead and try out those last few on your page.